Hello, and welcome to Here's the Thing with Robbie and Jose, where we explore relationships through a male and female perspective. With me, as always, is the lovely Robbie.
Hello, Jose. How are
Hello,
you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm well. It's good to see you.
Yay.
Yay. So today we're continuing our saga with the Netflix Love is Blind. We've been
Yes.
going through episode by episode. If you haven't caught the other ones, please go back and listen to those. We're doing it all chronologically. Today we're talking about episode 6. And this is a big deal in any relationship. This is meeting the parents, meeting the siblings,
Yes.
seeing where each other lives for the first time,
Mm,
like seeing how they live, things
yeah.
like that. So,
If you want to run, this is the time to run.
yes, exactly. Exactly.
And or you can figure out like, yeah, this person is so messed up. Now I know why.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're going with this episode. So we kind of open up with Shane and Natalie are, having this deep conversation, and
Yes.
and you see that a lot too with all the people on here. It's almost like they had deep conversations in the pod,
Right.
but there's something about obviously they're face to face now, but like a lot of the couples, it's that different kind of connection, which I
Yeah.
think is really important in a relationship. Because if you can't really sit down like a lot of them were doing and having those heart to heart, deep conversations, like how do you progress past that if it's just kind of a superficial kind of thing? And so, like, how is it for you when you have that almost like that first deep conversation? And it could be even over the phone. Maybe
Yeah.
it's that 5 hour
It's it's
conversation,
it's
you
a
know?
it's a weird conversation. Well, I say weird, but that's maybe not the right way to describe it. But you're right. I was just thinking the same thing when I saw it. I thought to myself, they're having a conversation about them.
Yeah.
Before you're having a conversation like me, I do this, I do that,
Yeah.
I grew up there. Here's
I
my
like this
opinion on
food.
stuff.
I
Yes,
like
but
tacos.
now you're talking.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, tacos. Ooh, don't bring up tacos. I have bad memories.
Sore subject.
But nevertheless, you kind of like, yeah, you're talking about, okay, how are we going to move forward, right? Because they were talking about, like getting a house and getting a
Right.
place,
What's
and
the
the
plan?
finances came up, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, ooh, that was a hard one because
Yeah.
Natalie seems to be a little more, let's say, conservative in that
Yeah.
approach, right? She's looking for the future and just making sure. And Shane was like, I don't really believe in 401ks. And I'm like, they exist, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And
I know
you
you
can
don't
kind
believe in
of
them,
see
but they
like too
do.
like their different personalities coming out even more. I mean, we did see a lot of that, but this is like the important stuff. The beginning, it's this
Mhm.
flirty, cutesy, whatever, but it's like, how are we going to live? Where are we going to live? Like, how do you're figuring out those communication styles.
Mhm.
And so, and one of the things that they brought up that I wanted to talk about was they did the thing that a lot of relationships do. It's like, I'll never leave you. And they're like, don't leave. It's the saying of it, right? We've all been there, right? To say that it's such a big deal. And it's like, I know the want to say it, right?
That's
It's
what
like,
that's what the marriage vows are, by the way.
right. But I mean, like when you're dating and you have that, I mean, obviously you can get divorced. It's not the end of the world, but like I feel like a lot of couples do say like, well, don't ever leave me. They're like, oh, I'll never leave you. You're making a very bold, very strong statement.
Again, that's what wedding vows are.
But I
It
mean,
come from a guy that's been divorced. Like some people just don't take it that
do you
serious.
feel like, I'm sure I've been told that in my past too, obviously with relationships that didn't work out, of that person saying like, I'll never leave you, whatever. It's almost I feel like some people do take that as kind of a promise.
Oh yeah,
And when it doesn't work out, do you feel more slighted because they said it?
yeah. You said you'd never leave me, and you just broke up with me. What happened to never leaving
Yeah. I guess it's like I equate that to like when you see it in like movies when like there's a couple that's married and one person literally out of the blue just says I want a divorce and the other person had no idea,
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
yeah.
It's like
I think guys. Here's the thing about guys, right? And back in the day, if you ever watched Scarface, right? Scarface says, "All I have in this world is my word and my balls." And so guys kind of take that, right? Because back in the day, before contracts existed,
mm,
that's all you really had was your word. right?
Yeah, it was
So
like a
when
handshake.
pretty much, right? And when you said you were supposed to do something, you were supposed to do that. Obviously, times are different now,
Yeah.
and now they want it on paper.
Well, I just feel I don't even now it feels like people are too fast and loose with that term. Like if I ever said that to someone, it means I really meant it. Like, you know what I mean? Unless you did something that was unbelievable,
Right,
like whatever.
right.
But
But there was a time, there was a golden time when a man, all he had was really his word. If
yeah.
you said you were going to do something, you were going to do it, and they believed you, and that's. And I've tried to do that too, which is why I think sometimes guys don't try to stay away from commitment because it's like, okay, now I've said it, now I have to do it no matter what. So like commitment, and that's part of it, right? Because it's like if you don't, right? Let's say you're married or you're in a relationship, and your wife asks you to go mow the lawn, and you're like, yeah, I'll do it, and then you don't do it, she's gonna call you out immediately. You
Yeah.
said you were gonna do it. I was like,
It's
all right.
hot.
That's why I was so guys sometimes would be like, well, I'll try to get to it today. I'll do my best, sweetheart, because they know that as soon as you make that promise, it's a broken promise. If you didn't couldn't get to it for one reason or the other, and sometimes they will hold your
So
feet to the
what if a
fire.
girl asked you like, "Will you ever leave me?" And in your analogy that you just said, would you say like, "Well, I'll try not to"? Like because I feel like guys would be like, "Well, that's
Excuse me.
not the plan." I mean, you know.
Right, right. I probably would say probably no. I won't leave you, baby. But I don't know. It's such a hard thing. I don't know. I think you're setting yourself up for whatever. You shouldn't. Again, a wedding vow is different. If
Mm.
you're dating somebody, it's hard to ask that question, and you're probably going to get a stock response. It's very few and far between that
Yeah,
somebody
but I
would say
mean,
like,
like,
I don't
even when
know.
you're married, I think that once, like, if one person says they want a divorce, some people will bring up the vows. It's like, well, you made a vow
Oh yeah,
that we were gonna whatever.
oh yeah.
It's again, like you said, you're holding that person to you said this,
Better or worse,
and so like
sickness and in health,
I think that in a
till death
boyfriend
do us
girlfriend
part.
relationship or whatever, like before you're married, maybe you shouldn't say, "I'll never leave." It just seems like
No.
a very and for this
And
couple
I've
in
had women
particular.
that have told me I'll never leave you, and they left me.
Yeah, but I mean, like this in this couple, they've only been together a week. I
Right,
mean, you know what
right,
I mean? Like
yeah.
it's
Like
even
3 or
more
4 weeks, but
extreme.
yeah.
Yeah, it's way more extreme to say it now. It's like you really you think you know that person, and I don't know what it's like to be in this scenario, but it's like to say that I don't know.
Yeah,
It seems weird, but
yeah.
they're having that conversation and then it kind of goes to this funny aspect that I wanted to ask you about where Shane is asking Natalie, he wants to wear a particular thing to the wedding,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that.
Yeah, so it's like, and I hear that a lot from like my friends is like, well, my husband, he's like he wants to wear a camouflage tuxedo or so. It's like always something weird, or I want to wear Jordans instead of dress shoes and stuff. I feel like it's more of the men asking for unconventional things, I should say.
So here's my thought on that. Because I believe he actually says something along the lines of, well, this is your wedding. And then she says, no, it's your wedding too.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, be careful with that.
Mm.
Because if it's my wedding, then I'm going to want some things. And in this particular case, he wanted something just ridiculous. He wanted a cape. I don't know why he wanted a cape, but he wanted a cape. But therein lies the problem. Is if you have an idea of how your wedding is going to go,
Mm.
and he wants to do something silly or whatever, like it's his wedding too. So either it's yours and we're going
Yeah.
to do it exactly how you want it, or it's ours and I'm going to have some input. But that's where I think people get into fights, right? Because you're planning the wedding
Mm.
and you want your partner to be in there, but really you really don't.
Yeah.
Or really what you're trying to do is you already have your idea, so you have two options. So you're saying, okay, here's your two options.
Mm.
I really don't want your input other than just tell me, help me decide on these
Yeah.
two. But if he were to say, well, I want it completely fuchsia, or I want to wear a purple suit and
Mm.
all that, most women are going to instantly shut that down and say,
Yeah.
no,
You're
we're
like,
not
I
doing
want
that.
all my groomsmen to wear like football uniforms and
Exactly,
like,
exactly.
but but I feel like women are usually the drivers of how the wedding goes because I mean, it's a stereotypical, little girls think about their weddings their whole life and blah,
Sure.
blah, blah. And so maybe it would be hard to kind of give in to something that maybe the woman thinks is ridiculous.
Oh, for sure. but that's the person you're marrying. So,
Yeah.
but I will say this: when I was getting married, um, she planned all the wedding, just FYI, and it was beautiful and all that. She had male friends, and they were groomsmen or whatever, and I had so one of them wanted to do something silly. One of the groomsmen, her friends,
Uh-huh.
he wanted to put up like a sign, like rating it, like when she walked down the aisle, like you know how they put like 9 or a score of 7 or 8. Yeah, it was stupid, and they ran it by me, and I said, no, we're not doing that. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, she would get a kick out. I said, no, we're not doing that because this is her day. She planned it out. She did all the work. We're not going to do anything stupid like that. And plus, I'm the
Oh, wait, so your wife didn't know that it was
no.
gonna. Oh,
They
okay.
just wanted to do that at the last minute to kind of surprise her, and I was like, "No, we're not doing that." It's
That
like, "Oh yeah,"
sounds
because they went to high school
mean.
together, and I'm like, "No, we're not doing that." Right?
Yeah.
So I put a kibosh to that because again, I realized this is special for her. She's done a lot of work, and she didn't ask for any of that
Yeah,
nonsense.
but you and your wife weren't having that conversation. That was a side conversation with someone else. But like, if you were to ask her, I mean, it sounds like you probably didn't ask for anything silly for yourself.
No, like I said, she planned it all.
Okay. And you're most guys, I feel like were probably totally fine with that. Maybe back in the day, I think it feels like it's kind of changing now. It feels like now guys are speaking up more because you're starting to see these
Yeah, I
really
mean,
weird,
you
like I
have
said, the
Star
whole,
Wars
yeah,
weddings and stuff like
like I
that. And if
said,
you're
the,
both into it, for sure.
yeah, it's like if they're all wearing basketball shoes or whatever and they think it's cute or Chuck Taylors or whatever, like, as a woman, I think we kind of have to give in a little bit,
Right.
like, because it is still, I mean, I agree with what she said. It's your day too. And so it has to be this partnership, right? And so, but I mean, I guess it depends on what your limit is. Like, if you're asking for something that's so bizarre, then maybe you'd be able to say no or whatever. But I'm trying to think of what my limit would be.
I mean,
Um,
but that's what I'm saying. So it's either going to be um, they're both going to plan it out,
mm,
or again, if you don't trust your partner to make good decisions on certain things,
yeah,
then just you might be better off just planning it yourself. Because I
yeah,
know women are like, yeah, it's supposed to be our wedding, and I get it. But if you're going to shoot down my ideas, then it's really not our wedding. It's
hmm,
really yours. You have an idea, so just go with it. And I'm not trying to be a jerk about it, mind you, but I'm just saying, like, if you really already have in your mind what that's going to look like,
hmm,
and it's going to clash with whatever I want to do, it's not worth the 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 whatever, right? I would much rather see my I want to start out on a good note and make you happy and make
yeah,
sure that you're happy. Because again, it's not that it doesn't mean that much to me. It does. It means a lot that I'm married, but I know that this is significant to you, and I would
hmm,
much rather you be just super duper happy with how your wedding goes
yeah,
and all the details. Because for guys, to the most part, and I'm maybe I'm just speaking for myself. I'm looking forward to marrying you, being with you.
yeah,
This ceremony that we're doing, that's great, and I love it, and I get that but it doesn't. That part doesn't mean to me. What
right.
what what matters the most to me is that we're happy, that you're happy, that you enjoyed your day, and that we're committed to one another, and we're gonna have a life together. That to me is the
Yeah.
is more significant than whatever whatever the bridesmaid's color
Yeah.
is going to be or whatever.
Yeah, we have to remember that weddings is basically just a party. So let's not focus on that and let's focus more on the marriage, but I just thought it was kind of funny, like, you see a lot of more of that
Sure.
now, but then we move on to Ayana and Jarrett. And so Ayana goes over to Jarrett's apartment. She seems kind of surprised of how it's kind of put together, clean, things like
It's a
that.
bachelor pad.
But I mean, with that, she started looking through all the drawers and cabinets and like literally going through
Oh
everything,
yeah.
which I was just like, I've never had a guy do that to me, which I feel like it'd be really annoying. Is that a typical girl thing?
To go through guys stuff.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
immediately the very first time you go over there.
Yeah. It reminds me of The Office. Have you ever seen The Office? Well,
Yeah.
you've seen The Office, obviously, but yeah, Jim throws a party,
Hmm.
and that was the first time that Pam ever went there, and then
Yeah.
she immediately went to his room and was like going through his stuff and went to his yearbook
I've
and all
never
that stuff.
done that. Not once in a relationship, but I start going through people's drawers and things,
Well, they're
cabinets to try to.
engaged, by the way.
Well, not on The Office. They weren't even
They know
dating.
that, but they had known each other for like
Even if
forever.
I don't know. But I mean, like in real life, obviously, you're probably going to see um, your partner's place before you get engaged. And it just
Normally, yeah.
seems, yeah, but it just saying it seems weird that you would go in and
Are
start.
you saying that women don't usually typically go through guys' stuff? Because that's
I
not been
think
my
they
experience.
do.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't agree with it. I don't do that because I don't want to find something, But I mean, I don't know. It just seemed kind of annoying. I hate to say that, but it was just like, even if they are engaged, it's still, I wouldn't want anyone to do, even if I had friends over that I've known forever, don't go through my things. Like you come in my room for some reason and you're pulling out my drawers and stuff. It's like, why would you do that? But people do that.
Women are curious by nature. You can't stop that. Guys
No.
might not do that. Or if, like I don't know. I've been to women's houses. I don't go through their stuff. I'll pay attention to like their ornaments and their pictures and things like that, but I don't like
Kind of the
open
overall,
drawers.
like how they live. But I mean, like, have
Yeah.
you ever been in a situation where, I know you're pretty tidy. Let's say you go to a woman's house and you're seeing it for the first time and it's, really messy. Like, what do
Mm,
you know what I mean? Would that sway a person?
a guy, not just a person. Well,
Well, I
female, it
mean,
might. I don't know.
yeah.
For a guy, no, not really. I mean, I prefer that they have it, somewhat kept up. Most women do, but I
Mm.
have, I have gone over or dated women, and their house was just a complete, just wreck. And I don't know that it changed my mind one way or the other. It really, I was just like, okay, that's just the way they
What
keep
if it
their
was like so
place.
bad where you didn't even want to sit on any surfaces? Like, I mean,
Mm,
what if, I mean,
I mean, the thing about that is that it's, and this is probably a bad way to look at it, but if that's the way they have their house, then they might, for the most part, be cool with a lot of other things, right?
loosey
I
goosey.
mean, I'm just saying, like, because a tidy person typically, I know I'm making general statements here, but
Mm,
they like it a certain way.
yeah.
It's got to be this way.
They're
You
set in
put
their ways.
yeah, like I have a buddy of mine, and he's like that. Like, whenever he uses his tools, he wants them put back exactly where they came from.
Yeah.
There's no like, hey, I put a screwdriver, now I'm just putting it back on my bench. It's like, no, put it back exactly where it needs to go.
Hmm.
Don't 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 deviate from that. And same thing, like, so other people, like, if there's dishes, wash your dish after you're done with it. I don't like seeing. I've heard people say that. I don't like dishes in the
Yeah.
sink. Wash them, rinse them out, whatever you got to do. Put them in the dishwasher, whatever. But the ones that don't have that, it makes it a lot easier because again, they're not going to be frustrated because
Yeah.
that type of personality, they're very tidy. They like things a certain way, and if you're not that way, it's going to clash because then you're going to go over to their house and they're going to be like, I can't stand being in your house.
Yeah.
It's messy. Me personally, how they keep their house, I don't. It doesn't
I've
bother
been
me.
on both spectrums of that. I've been to boyfriend's house where it's super tidy and decorated and things like that, and I'm shocked. And I mean, it's an awesome thing as a tidy person, right? But I've also seen gone over to boyfriend's house where they have cement blocks holding up their TV, and they're totally fine with that, And so, like, guys, they don't typically don't put an emphasis on how they live, and it's
Yeah.
like, but for women, it's a big deal. So, like, if you were single,
Yeah, well, in the thing that stood out in this particular episode is that he had the watch case or whatever,
yeah.
right? The display case, and she brought up like, "Where'd you get this from?" And I think she already knew the answer,
Yeah, she just
but
wanted him to say it.
yeah, and it was like, "Oh, that's an ex girlfriend of mine," and of course, she felt a certain kind of way about that.
Yeah. I don't think that she should, only because this is a really fast process. So they really don't know each other. And we talked about this before with gifts. It's like, I don't think from what Jarrett was saying, it didn't sound like he looked at that watch box and was like, I love my ex. Like, I don't think it was like that. It was a nice gift. He liked it. It was cool.
Oh, it was a watch. I mean, I think I have one very similar to that.
I'm just saying I don't agree that Ayana should have felt a certain way, but with that, she's already feeling insecure about the whole Mallory thing, right? So she's
Right.
still carrying that. And so, like, seeing
Oh
that, it's only adding to that, you know, her being the runner up or whatever. And so, like, I don't know. I can understand that part, the emotional part of it, but I don't know. I don't think that just because you have a new relationship means you have to throw out everything that they gave
yeah.
you unless it's super personal.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, I can see it, and I would venture to say though, if they progress forward, she'll probably make him get rid of it.
It's terrible. But
I'm almost positive that
yeah,
she'll make him get rid of it,
yeah,
or she'll buy him a different one to replace it or
yeah,
whatever, and say, "Hey, use this one, not that one," because who wants the other person's essence
yeah.
in a new relationship, right?
I
Nobody wants
understand, but
that.
it's just a watch box. But I don't know. But I mean, them with them too, you kind of see them connecting on a different level. You know, she's looking at pictures of him when he was little, and it's this very sweet bonding kind of
Yes.
thing. Like I said, all the couples, it seems like they were kind of coming together and having those conversations.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess with the exception of Shayna and Kyle. So after that, they go to meet her family, and
Mm,
her family is super religious. We talked about this before. They have the religion thing. Kyle is atheist and he, doesn't believe in that kind of stuff. And
right.
so he goes over to her family's house, and I think it's like her brothers there, the parents and things like that. And they have that uncomfortable, it's not that the dad is drilling him per
Oh
se.
no, they're drilling them. That entire family. It was an interrogation.
No, but it didn't seem like what you would typically see. Like it was, yes, it was, but it was kind of light. It wasn't like, I don't know. But
I took it as a extreme interrogation because they were asking very direct questions,
yeah.
and the mom was sitting back and saying body language says everything.
Yeah, but I
So she
mean,
was like scoping him out and checking out every move. They were hinging on every word that came out of his mouth, and it was. I've been I've been in that situation
mm,
before where they're grilling me and stuff, and that's okay. What I will say about that, and I apologize, I didn't mean to interrupt, but what I will say about that is that you have to hold your ground, which Kyle did, which he basically, because they asked when the religion question came up, he was just like, no, I
yeah,
don't.
he wasn't trying to pretend,
Right.
which is good.
And you have to do that. But yes, I've been interrogated many, many a times. I couldn't, however, help but think about how Shane would have handled that.
Mm,
Because I think Shane would have probably took a different approach. Kyle did a thing where he was really standing his ground, right? And he was just saying, "Hey, this is where I am, this is where I stand, so forth and so on." I think Shane probably, and I'm again, it's pure speculation, but I think his personality, he would have tried to disarm him a little bit more
yeah,
and try to kind of kiss up to him, if you
yeah,
will. Whereas Kyle really wasn't
yeah.
trying to do that.
But I think with the mom, what I can assume is that Shane and her mom probably are pretty close. So I guarantee you the mom already knew everything, about Shane and, her reservations with Kyle and things like that. So he kind of went in, honestly, with strikes against him already. I don't think there's really anything he could have said to win them over because I feel like it seemed they were already had their guards up. So Shayna
Yeah,
probably already told them like, yeah, I'm engaged with this guy, but I mean, I really want to be with him. And I left him in Mexico and I
this
don't
is my
really,
number two.
yeah, I mean, barely a number two, like, but you know what I mean? And so
I got
like,
you.
I know that's like a typical thing when you go meet the parents and it's usually the dad, right? If you have a daughter,
Yeah,
they're going to be like, what's your intentions with my daughter? And
yeah.
blah, blah,
Well, she
blah.
has two brothers, and that was the other part too.
Yeah, they're going to be, and then I mean, overly protective of that, but I mean,
Yeah.
it was kind of like an
And that's such
awkward.
a it's again, I've been on the other side. I've been on Kyle's side, and I've dated women that maybe it wasn't necessarily like super duper serious, but serious enough to meet her parents.
Yeah,
And when they grill you like that, like again, it's like that same question that you asked about, are you going to leave my daughter?
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
I don't
Don't.
know how this is going to play out. Like, what are your intentions? Like, do you plan on marrying? And yes, I mean, I'm kind of playing it by ear, but like you're asking me for, to predict what the future's going to look like, and I can't do that,
Yeah, if
unfortunately.
I had kids, I don't think that'd be something I would do. Like maybe if my daughter was dating someone for years
Yeah.
and nothing, I may at that point kind of pull them aside like, "Hey, like, but when you first meet someone, I don't know if parents, it's almost like this they want to seem big and powerful and it's like I want to scare. There are people that are like that that like to scare their child's partner that they chose. It kind of gives them that thrill. Like I said, it's kind of like an authoritarian like thing and
I
I don't
think
know.
it's more of, if you can handle this, then you'll be fine. But if you're going to fold under
Yeah, but
pressure,
you
you might
should
not be able to
be
make it.
when you meet someone, anyone for the first time, your first, intuition in that should be to be kind. Like, why would you immediately like, I'm gonna grill him and I'm gonna make him as uncomfortable as possible? Like, just be kind.
I,
Why you could still find out their personality by just having a normal
you
conversation, but
could, but
I don't know. I
that's the type of
he
family. Again, this is the nice thing about meeting family. is that you get a little more insight into that person because it's like, okay, and again, I pass no judgment, mind you,
Mhm.
because I've met many a parent,
Mhm.
but you're going into it now, you're like, oh, okay, this gives me a better feel of how, because if this is the environment that you grew up in, okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense to me. Now I kind of understand a little more about you because in all reality, right, all of us, I don't care who we are, we're influenced. If you were fortunate enough to have two parents in the house, you're going to be influenced by that. Even if you just have one parent,
Mhm.
you're going to be very, very influenced by that person, right?
Mhm.
Good or bad. And I don't know what, you never know where you're going to land with that, but they're obviously a big part of your life and how you were brought up, and maybe even some of the get-ups, which we're going to talk about because I have some thoughts on some
Yeah.
other couples. But anyways, yeah.
I just don't really agree with that approach of like trying to make them uncomfortable. But anyway, so Kyle holds his ground. We move on to Nick and Danielle. So Nick goes over to Danielle's family.
That's
They're
my
doing like
favorite.
a fishing little cookout kind of thing or whatever. And Danielle's mom,
Mm.
that's a character right
Let me
there.
tell
I
you
mean,
something. Danielle's mom, she is lovely.
um,
I'm
okay.
sorry. Just so that we're clear, I think all the moms were very lovely, but I'm attracted to a certain type of woman, and I thought was extremely, extremely attractive. But anyways, I just wanted to say that was kind of, but she is very outgoing, and I could kind of see it. I can kind of see it.
It's not the outgoing part that I had a problem with. It was, I feel that the mother was saying things not maybe intentional,
Mm,
but she was embarrassing her daughter, kind
I
of
agree.
putting her daughter down. Like, well, Danielle has all these
Mm-hmm.
insecurities, and I thought she would never find a man, like
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff. And
Yep.
I have never been in that situation. My parents have always been with anyone they've ever met. It's about respect, it's about kindness. They let me make my own decisions, and they would never embarrass me like that. And that was
Mothers
hard.
and daughters, that's I'm hoping we can do an episode about that because I would love to dissect that.
Yeah.
I would love to know the dynamic between mothers and daughters. I know what the dynamic is for sons and fathers for
Mhm.
sure, but mothers and daughters, that's a whole nother
Yeah, but
thing.
I just felt like Danielle's mom, I don't know, it's kind of like she didn't really respect her daughter because there's a boundary. And I just think that she, honestly, to me, seemed drunk and braggy and kind of all over the place. And I think she really,
I
I
didn't
mean,
get that at
Nick
all.
handled it really well. I think he was
Yeah.
very accepting,
Yeah.
but I just didn't like that trying to embarrass her and digging up these, not
Well,
secrets,
there was
but
a lot
it's,
of embarrassing moments. Even the brother was asking how frequently
oh,
they were
dude,
intimate, which I thought was completely inappropriate. But that's
but yeah, but why would you have that I mean, like that's what I'm saying. It's the same thing with Kyle. It's like, okay, if you want to have these kind of gatherings, maybe if you were married for a long time and we're all family at this point, it's a little bit more comfortable. But the first time,
But see, that's what I'm saying. That's exactly my point that I was trying to make. When you look at Danielle and how she's interacted in her relationships and how she is, and then seeing her parents,
mm,
I understand why she has some of
well,
the.
the dad seemed normal.
I don't know if that was her dad or stepdad. I couldn't quite tell
Oh,
because
oh, that's true. I think it
because the
was.
mom said something along the lines that I used to think that it would be okay to wait until after you got married to
Oh
have,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then all of a sudden somehow she's changed her stance on that. So I don't
Mm,
know,
mm,
but nevertheless, you have to imagine that that's her filtered part, right? To your point, she's probably acting somewhat different because it is the first time. So imagine getting that full blast, like
mm,
turning that on her mom and living through that every day, day in
mm.
and day out. And, now it makes sense. Now I'm like, okay, I kind of see where you might have developed a few
Yeah, for sure.
things.
It's very obvious.
I can kind of see it now, and again, it's to better understand that person.
Yeah.
So with that, you can maybe take that. So when you're communicating with them, it's like you have to understand like this was her mom, and I'm not saying anything bad or good about it, but that's like this is how she is,
Hmm.
and then she raised this person. So if there are certain things that she has a get up about, I can kind of make the connection. I can connect the
Yeah, but
dots.
I mean, if the parents are doing embarrassing things or being whatever, like it can put some people off. So when you meet, let's say that you were dating someone and then you go meet her family and her family is too much for you and
Hmm.
you're like, nope. And you may break up with that girl, even though it's not her.
Sure.
But it's like some people, and I think that, I don't know, I'm not saying that people should pretend to be something they're not, but like it's a lot for the first time.
Oh yeah,
I think
yeah,
she was
and
overdoing it.
that does happen. That would be a situation
Yeah.
where you could possibly break up because it's like I don't know that I, depending on how they came out, that might not be something that you're willing to move forward with. So
Hmm.
for sure. But yeah, that was a very interesting thing, and they talked about a lot of things
Yeah.
in that little barbecue or whatever.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, I thought the mom was very bubbly and lovely, and yeah, mothers and daughters, man,
Mm.
mothers and daughters. So after that, one thing I did want to talk about was Mallory and Salvador.
Mm.
So and I don't know why. I don't know. They don't really go into detail, but he didn't meet the parents, but he did meet. So Mallory was meeting Salvador's two sisters. I
Mm.
believe their names were Daisy and what was her other name? Victoria, I think. I could be wrong, but nevertheless, he was meeting there. So he what Mallory wasn't meeting Salvador's parents, just his sisters.
Mm.
And I just wanted to say a little bit about that. That it's awesome to have sisters. Like having sisters, and I don't know, what the families look like now, but having one sister might be cool, but having two sisters is the best. Having
Mm.
multiple sisters, at least for me, I was fortunate enough that I had, multiple sisters, and there's just, I don't know, they tend to soften you up a little bit in a good way, in a
Yeah.
very, very good way, because some of the struggles that they go through. You might not completely understand it because you're not a woman, but you can see how it affects the females, and you can see even for him how to a certain point he's influenced by them because he
Mm.
is very soft spoken, and they had nothing but praise and saying like, look, this is what you get when you see him. What you see is what you get.
Mm.
He's very genuine. He's awesome. That's got to go a long way because it's not like your mom. Your mom's always going to say like, my son is the best.
Yeah.
My son is the best thing since sliced bread, and you better
Mm.
treat my son like a prince that he is.
Hmm.
This is coming from a sibling, which
Yeah.
is sometimes that's a harder praise to get out of, right?
Yeah.
Because they're your siblings.
I
But
will say there's a huge difference between dating a guy who only has brothers and dating a guy that has sisters.
mhm.
It completely changed. I like to date guys that have sisters. I mean, for the reasons that you just said,
It's wonderful.
100%. It
It's
it gives
wonderful.
you the mom relationship with the son. It can't be the same. But seeing your sisters, whether you're older or younger, really that part doesn't matter as much. But it's like, you kind of learn how to treat them, and your mom be like, well, you got to treat your sister this way, and it teaches you all these amazing things for when you do,
Oh yeah.
have a
Oh yeah.
relationship.
It's one of the most. Again, I know everybody might not have that pleasure to do that.
Mm.
There's a lot of single. What is it? Oh my gosh, I can't think of it right now. The people that don't have any siblings.
An only
Only
child.
child. I don't know why it eluded me, but yes, an only child. And then of course there's like brothers and sister, like
Yeah.
just one brother and one sister, and
Yeah.
that's awesome. Or two brothers. That sometimes is pretty cool
Yeah.
too, because I have a brother too, so I know what that's like as well. That dynamic, but having sisters, it's a gift from God. To be honest with you, I
Yeah.
can't stress that enough. Now, when you're little, it might
Mm.
not feel that way.
Yeah.
Depending on how they treat you. But I just, from my experience, I just thought that was very um, heartfelt,
Hmm.
and I felt the love there. And when you have the love of your sisters, like there's, I don't know, there, you can talk to them about relationships. It's not like you can talk to your brother about it too, but again, they're going to be very practical about
Right.
it. But your sister comes at you in a totally different direction. You
Yeah.
can talk to her. She'll tell you some insight. She'll give you some advice. She'll give you the female's perspective. It's just, it really is a gift from God.
Yeah. It's like having your best friend as a girl and they're living there and it's like, well, she's mad at me. What do I do?
Yeah,
But yeah.
and I have a soft spot for all my sisters. So yeah.
Hmm.
Anyways, I just thought that
Yeah.
was really.
No, they were
Um,
very sweet. And yeah, I think.
Jared did come up though in that conversation. Jared came up
Mm.
because they had to explain. I don't know how, but the subject came up of because they were talking about the ring or something like that, and she said she liked gold, and then she said something else, and when you tell a woman something and it's cryptid,
Mm.
you won't get away with it. You have to.
Yeah.
So the sisters were like, "Wait a minute, you need to tell me more about that." And I can't remember what it was, but it was in reference to Jared. And she was like, "Well, I was dating multiple people, and there was another guy. I just didn't feel that way." So Mallory was basically given. So it wasn't an interrogation,
Right.
but
It was the way that you should do it when you meet someone. You just kind of politely, maybe if you're curious, you ask these things, but don't come off as like, like Shayna's parent. Like, you know what I mean? It's just too much. But
yeah, I
um,
thought that was sweet.
yeah, that they're very sweet. But then we move on to Dipti. She takes Shake over to see her family, and it's kind of uneventful, but I just wanted to say that, like, Dipti's parents, their relationship was beautiful, even though it was an arranged marriage.
Yeah.
The mom getting emotional about how, the dad had been there for her and stuff like that. It was very sweet. And I just think that seeing, if you are fortunate enough to have a two loving parents and they stay together and you have that as your model of what a marriage should be, a
Yeah,
relationship should be, respect and love and all those things. Like,
absolutely.
I mean, sure, like Dipti seems very lovely and she probably got a lot of that honestly from seeing her parents,
Well, yeah, and I was gonna say that too. Like Dipti's mom was also extremely lovely. Like
yes.
she had and this is what I was trying to say about um, let's say mature women or women of a certain age.
Hmm.
There's a certain refinement that comes with that. That's very appealing to me, and that
Hmm.
might just be me, where they're refined. They know how to handle themselves. They don't need to be extra, if you
Hmm.
want to go, if you want to put it that
Hmm.
way.
Hmm.
And there's something that was so beautiful about that. And yes, so the scene when they're, because they were talking about arranged marriages, because
Hmm.
apparently I think they were arranged, if I'm not mistaken, the Dipty's parents. And what I loved about that, so they're at the dinner table and they were talking about mutton, which I had to look that up. I didn't know what mutton was, so, but the father had made it. And if you look at her father, he's not a large man. He's a small man. I think his wife was probably taller than she was. But when the mom was talking about how they met, and then after they met, she just went into an emotional conversation about how he had always been there for her and provided. And she got teared up and she was talking. And that's what I wanted to kind of touch base on because, yes, and I get it that we live in a somewhat superficial world where like you want the tallest, most handsome, strong, fit guy. Fair enough. I get it. But don't discount the little guy because when a woman shows her appreciation the way Dipty's mom showed her appreciation for that man, I tell you right now, any man, if you show your appreciation to your man like that, that man will literally die for you. It's only when things get lost when if you don't tell him that you appreciate him, you don't vocalize it and you just kind of take it for granted, like, oh yeah, he's there. Yeah, he's gonna go to work. Yeah, he's gonna do this. He's gonna do all that. Like
Well, that
I'm
works both ways, though. And
fair enough.
men usually
Fair
don't
enough.
say to their
I
wives, like, I
completely
appreciate
agree.
everything you
I
do and
I
blah, blah, blah. And
but I watching that scene, I got emotional myself. I got a little teary eyed because I'm like, man, if a woman tells me that, there's really literally nothing I wouldn't do for that woman. But you're right. I mean, you need to reciprocate that too.
yeah.
I think in this case, and I don't know their relationship, but if you look at it, it felt like because he didn't talk very much,
Hmm.
but his actions spoke louder than words. That sometimes gets lost with women because sometimes, not always. Whereas, like, yes, and men do it too, right? If a woman does a lot of things for you and you take it for granted, like you said, it works both ways. But if you reciprocate the way you want to reciprocate, as long as you're doing it in your own way, I think it works. And so for her, the mom was um, at least aware enough to know that yeah, he does all these things for me,
Hmm.
and I appreciate that he does. And he was silent for most of it, but I'm sure he got emotional too. And it feels good to feel appreciated. Like,
Yeah.
and I think that goes for everybody. But anyways, I thought that was
I would
very
say
sweet.
for the most part, most women want to be shown. We want to be, you know what I mean? We're looking at actions rather than because a guy can say all day long, I love you and blah, blah, blah. I mean, you can say that, but like, I feel like most women, we want to see the actions.
I think
I mean,
I think it depends on the love language because I've been in situations where I was showing it as much as possible, but then they were like, "Well, you
well,
didn't
what if
say
they
it."
just have a different idea of
Exactly. That's what
like,
I'm saying. You just have to understand
yeah,
what your partner and how they communicate their affection and their love for you.
yeah,
And it might not be the way you're used to it, but it doesn't matter.
yeah,
You know that they're giving you, that they're showing you love the way that they like to show you
yeah.
love. And it might not always be the way you want to receive it, but
Yeah.
you should. be cognizant of it.
Yeah, but I really like Dipty's family. I think they just seem like really good people.
Oh yeah,
Their
they're
whole family,
wonderful.
very sweet. But yeah, so they meet, and then after that, we go back to Nick and Danielle, and it seemed like maybe they had just gotten done with a date. They're kind of doing that after date walk kind of thing, and they kind of not their first fight because we saw before, but like it's kind of like that first fight when you have with someone. So basically, there was a miscommunication on. She was saying she was super happy that the meeting with her family went really well. Apparently, Nick was dealing with something else on the side. They didn't actually reveal what it was.
Right,
His friends were texting him something. I don't know what was going on,
right,
but she was like, why weren't you as excited as I was? My family really loved you and blah, blah, blah.
right,
And he was saying, like, well, I was dealing with something else.
right.
But anyway, so they have this miscommunication and they have this fight and it doesn't really end well. And, some names were being thrown around, which, I mean,
Well, and this is my observation, and maybe I'm off, but it is what it is. So I feel like Danielle is determined to sabotage her relationship.
mm,
I really, honestly, and truly do. And I don't think that's necessarily, I think it's something that she would have to really address at a certain point. And what I mean by that is because, again, uh, there's that fear, and I
mm.
know exactly what it is. Where if things are going too good, you almost feel like if it's going too good, when's the
Yeah,
other
you
shoe
need to
going to
prepare
drop?
yourself.
Yes, and
Mhm.
so a lot of times as a defense mechanism, you tend to push that other person away. So before you can hurt me, I'm
Yeah.
going to push you away so that. But at the same time, like what you're doing is you're sabotaging yourself.
Yeah. Because from the outsider, it didn't seem like what happened was that big of a deal. I mean,
Well, and here's where I think Nick went not wrong, but I understand where he was coming from because he was saying I was dealing with stuff.
mhm.
I didn't bring you into the fray about it because I was trying to deal with it. So I'm trying not to ruin this day for us,
Yeah.
but that's not how she took it. And sometimes men will do that where
Mhm.
it's like, we're not trying to inconvenience you. And I know you women would say, it's not an inconvenience. You can talk to me about it. And I get it. But it could possibly ruin the day. And then what
Yeah.
I'm trying to do is my best to deal with it. Women do it too, by the way.
Mm.
Women do it all the time, just FYI.
Yeah, I've
But
done
it's
it.
well, but it's because you'll be out on a date
Yeah.
and let's say something is going on with you. Maybe you feel bloated or gassy or something, and you're like, "Hey, are you okay?" I'm fine. Okay, gotcha. But we can't harp on it. We're not allowed to like because if we do, we're going to get into an argument. What's wrong? What's wrong? Why are you not? And then all of a sudden, it turns into this big argument. So
Mm.
sometimes we just have to be like, "Okay, you said you're fine. We'll move on." And I think so. Danielle was upset that he wasn't sharing, but Nick was trying to be considerate
Yeah.
and not, and maybe they would have, and he was saying, like, I'll talk to you about it afterwards. I
Mhm.
just don't want to bring it up now. But
Yeah.
he did because what she called him out on was the fact that he kept on bringing up his friends
Yeah.
and she wasn't quite sure why. Like you said,
Yeah.
they didn't really show, they edited all of that stuff out. But yeah, no, I get it. And that's a classic relationship mistake. I've done
Yeah.
that many a times when I'm dealing with stuff. I don't tell people and then they get mad at me because I wasn't sharing, and it was just like, well, I was just trying to take care of it.
I just feel like for as a woman, I would rather the guy tell me, you don't have to give me all the details. Just say like, I had amazing time with your parents. I'm so glad they liked me. Just a side note, I'm dealing with this one thing and kind of give like a little short whatever. But just that way we're aware that your demeanor is not about the parents. It's there's this other thing going on.
Yeah, I
If you don't
mean,
communicate that, we don't
hey, I'm
know.
just saying this, and I'll just say this much: knowing, at least in my experience, women are way more curious. They wouldn't let me leave it at that. They're gonna want
Some
more
women won't.
details. They're gonna be like, "Well, what's going on? What can I help with?" And I was like, "Nope, nope, nope, nope. I don't want to get into that right now." Right?
I understand.
Especially if you're haven't processed it yet. I don't know what the situation was, but sometimes you're not ready to talk about it. And I think that if a woman says I don't want to talk about it right now, it's expected that a man should respect that and say, okay, we can talk about it later. Let's move on
Yeah.
with our day. And I think that women should have that same
Hmm.
mutual respect. It's like, hey, it's not about you right now, but I am dealing with something. But right now, I'm doing well, and we'll just keep on going.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into details right now, but we can have it later on.
Yeah.
And if a woman can live with that for a short time, then sure, let's move on. But if she's like, no, I want to know, like, and then she starts getting upset and it ruins the entire day,
I will
Now
say
we're
that,
done.
like, in that scenario, if the guy would just, all he has to say to me is that it's not you, it's this something else, I can drop it at that point. But if you just come and say, like, there's a bunch of stuff going on, we're immediately going to think it's has something to do with us. As long as you establish
Um,
it's not you,
yeah,
it's work or whatever, I can drop it at that point.
sure. I mean, that's what I'm saying, and that's where it goes on. But I
Yeah.
think sometimes um, Danielle tends to, and I know. By the way, when I say that she's determined to sabotage, is because I've done the exact same thing. So
Yeah.
I'm looking at her and I'm thinking, "Yep, I do the exact same thing
Yeah.
all the time. I make mountains out of molehills,
Yeah.
and it's like nothing going on, but it's a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
It's a way to protect yourself from being hurt or
Yeah.
possibly being hurt. But what they're doing is inadvertently making things worse,
Yeah. But they have that fight and she walks away. She's like, I can't handle this right now. When
which I hate, by the way.
well, what are we supposed to say?
Well, the reason why I hate the walking away is
Mhm.
because that it's not resolved. That means we're gonna have to revisit
No, I
this.
know, but I don't think they were going to resolve it at that point. But,
Probably not.
that she walks away and then they have that, scene where she comes home from the apartment. It looks like she just came from the gym.
Yeah.
And it's like that awkward when you have a fight with your spouse or whatever,
Time
and
to
then
pick
you
it up.
see each other and you're like, no one wants to say they're sorry first, right? So
Right.
it seems kind of awkward, but they do kind of talk it out. And again, with this episode, with all the other couples, they go to the couch, they have this very deep conversation. You're starting to learn how to communicate. And so it seems like they kind of came together, but it is that awkward thing of like, you don't want to talk first. Like, when let's say that you do live together and you have a fight, you go to bed, let's say you sleep on the couch and you wake up in the morning, and you're having that, your morning routine, you're making coffee and stuff and you're passing them in the kitchen, but you don't say anything. And
I mean, look, and here's the other kind of downside to those things. That's why I really like to, if we're gonna start an argument, I like to finish it and resolve it before you walk away,
yeah,
because you can tell that they were stewing about what each other said. Because the first thing that, or not the first thing, but one of the things that came out of Danielle's mouth was, "Well, you said,"
yeah,
and that's when you're in a heated discussion, you can't. I've said a lot of things.
yeah,
I've said I've loved you so many times. I've said that I care
all
about
that's
you. I
out the
say,
window.
yeah, but you're not bringing that up. You're
Yeah.
bringing something up when I was emotionally charged. And then you're like, you said, like, yes, I was emotionally charged. You know what I wish they would bring back? The whole thing of, can I take it back? Take it back.
You can say that, but they may not
But I
agree to
wish they
it.
would bring that back. Nowadays, it's set in stone and it's there forever. But there used
Mhm.
to be a time when you say like, "Hey, you said something, take it back," and you're like, "Okay, I'm sorry, I take it back," and like you were cool with it, and you're like, "Okay, it's erased from history. It was redacted. We're good. And
Yeah.
why can't we bring that back? Let's bring that back. Let's bring it back." Where you say, "Take it back," and you say, "Okay, I'll take it back. I'm
Well,
sorry."
it
Well,
starts with one person. You try to bring it back, and we'll see how it progresses. But I think it was
I love
sweet.
it.
Like I said, they had that conversation, and sometimes you do need to walk away if it's heated. And I mean, that's
Yeah.
situational.
No, I
But
got
we end the episode at the infamous beach
you.
party. Everybody's getting together, and they even had
Mm.
people on there that didn't find love that they invited on there, which I mean, I thought that was cool. It's
All the
like
losers. Just kidding.
they didn't
It'd
make
be a
the love
perfect time to
connection.
mingle.
Yeah, I
I mean,
mean, it was really cool. So they go out there, and the main thing that happened there is, Shayna is seeing Shane for the
oh
very first time, and this Shayna, like, her actions. Okay, so she's still doing that coy thing. I mean, I get it; it's uncomfortable, but they finally go away and they have this conversation. And it turns out that Natalie and Shayna had a phone conversation. They're fake friends or whatever the situation is. But
God.
Shayna she said she was joking, but is basically trying to hook up with Natalie with one of her friends. And of course, she tells Shane that's her soon to be husband. You're going to share that information. So Shayna and Shane, they go off on their own little thing. And Shayna is acting, I mean, I don't know how else to say it, but like a fool. I mean,
Well, yes, but before, just real quick, because I know we didn't touch on it, but just to give a bit of a little backstory on that, right? Kyle and Shayna broke up.
Yeah.
So in that episode, Shayna basically said, "You know what? I don't want to move forward with you,
Mm-hmm.
and we're done," which really threw him off guard. And I know we talked about it in the past.
Mm.
I think everybody knew
Yeah.
that it was going to end episode 3 when
Yeah.
when he proposed and she said yes, and then he said, "Are you sure? Because
Yeah.
if not," and then it comes to full circle in 6. Like we all saw it coming.
Yeah.
We knew it was coming, and she finally said, "You know what? We're done. I
Yeah.
can't move forward." And she gives him back her mom's ring, and then that's that. But
Yeah.
anyways, now so she's got to be emotionally charged all over the place,
Mm.
and obviously if you look at and I think it was one of the episodes previously, Shayna kept on saying, "Nobody can love Shane the way I can love him. I
Yeah.
am his number one." So you got to come from a place where she is really delusional. And I would say like she's delusional to a point where, and I don't know where it's going to go, right? I haven't seen the
Mm.
future episodes, but she has it in her head that nobody else can love this guy the way she can love him. She is like the only person for this guy. So that's where, and again, it's delusion, and I
Yeah.
get it, but it's sad to watch, right?
Yeah.
Because if it was a guy, it would be like that's completely inappropriate.
Yeah.
It's like you can't just keep on going. Like she's already told you no, bro.
Right.
You gotta move on. You
Exactly.
gotta move on. Like I love you, but she's moved on, and you gotta move on. But in this case, she just will not let it go.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And then she goes into this whole rant. I mean, really, that's what it is about, how Natalie and Shane, their relationship is fake and
mm,
blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it never works out for the person, the third wheel or whatever, to try to meddle. It's not going to work out
well,
for you.
here's where I think Shayna went wrong, because I think Shayna had a plan, right? And she was trying to. It's one of those inception things, right? So she was
Mm,
trying to plant doubt into his mind.
right.
The problem is she forgot who she's talking to.
Mm,
And who she's talking to is a man, even though he's extremely handsome, is very insecure.
yeah.
So when you come off with a man like that and you start judging him, he's immediately going to get defensive. So the first thing that she was like the way she was, a this is where he went wrong, because he brought up the fact that, hey, Natalie told me that if something went wrong with us, that you would bring another guy. Where Shayna misstepped is if she would have understood the audience, she would have understood that he's already insecure. So he's basically saying, like, hey, why are you trying to introduce another dude to my girl?
mm,
Who wants that?
yeah.
He wasn't looking at it from like, oh, she's trying to get me. He was like, wait a minute. Are you
Yeah.
saying that there's somebody better than me?
Yeah.
That's where she messed up. And then it just kept on evolving. And that's why he was like a sham. And he's like, again, you're passing judgment on me. You're
Right.
telling me I made the
Exactly.
bad choice.
Yeah. She's insulting him basically. It's like, dude, if you
Yes.
want him, this is not how you get him.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And it was because she forgot who her audience was. And
Yeah.
she doesn't to that point. And this is what's so interesting about that particular conversation.
Mhm.
She never went into depth with him. So she
Yeah.
doesn't know who he really is,
Yeah.
or those little things that you would
Right.
pick up if you have more intimate conversations.
Right.
Because she was trying to keep it so light.
Right.
She would have known this is not how
Right.
you
She kind of
approach
went in for
him.
the attack. So like
Oh,
she
yeah.
first kind of was like, why are you guys talking about me? Are you so bored in your relationship that you have to bring me up? But then she flips it and says, like, well, I think he said something like they weren't talking about it. She's like, well, why don't you talk about it? You should talk
Exactly.
about everything. She is
Exactly.
so all over the
And
place.
she called them. She's the one that called. Shayna
Yeah.
called Natalie. It's
Yes.
not like Natalie reached out to.
Exactly. And, I feel bad for Shayna in the sense of like, obviously she doesn't know how foolish she's looking, but that's what I'm saying. Like the people that try to meddle, you got to know your audience, like you said, 100%, but it usually doesn't work out. You're trying to, and I mean, I don't know why she couldn't just accept it. I know she broke it off with Kyle. Maybe she thought she was going to go there and say, we broke up, and he's going to be like, I loved you all along. And they're going to, kiss on the beach. I don't know what she
But
expected.
see, that's the other part. Like you said, like she was insulting him, saying it was a sham. I thought that was completely
It
inappropriate.
was really mean.
How do you make that determination? You don't know Shane.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but
And
you
you
don't
don't
know
know
him.
Natalie either.
Right? You don't know. Yeah, you don't know. And so my whole thing is that her spewing out those things, it's not making her case.
What was she basing that off? That's the question. I didn't.
She's based in. That's what I'm saying. We had to go back.
Yeah.
Her delusion is that they're meant to be together. She would be a better fit for him.
Yeah, but the better fit doesn't mean that what they have is a sham.
To
Why
her,
was
it
she?
is. To her, because think about it this way.
Mm,
Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of it. If you believe something so much
yeah.
that this is the only way that it could be,
Everything else is,
Everything else is garbage. It's a sham. It'll never work. It's dumb. It's my way or the highway. And so again, she doesn't really know him. So she's coming from a place of delusion,
yeah,
thinking that they are like soulmates or something.
so fueled. She just seems so angry, and
Man,
I
she
don't
was
know. It was really hot, but I don't think that that's the best approach. But I mean, um,
And you know what's funny? And this is the only part. And it's I know it's a manipulation tactic, but it's not. What I will say is this: if you ever come across a situation where, let's say, somebody left you for somebody else, right? And that happens, right? The best approach, or in my opinion, the only thing that you can do is be the best version of yourself
yeah,
to show them this is what you meant. I'm not
right,
saying like you put on tight dresses or anything
yeah,
like that and try to be like, look, this is what I'm saying, that you better yourself in such a way that no matter what, A,
yeah,
I'm telling you, you didn't break me. And B, yes, I am that good.
hmm,
Because if she basically lets them do their thing,
hmm,
they might break up on their own. And guess who he would go running back to? But doing this,
yeah.
having that
You
conversation,
burn that bridge.
it's like you're insulting me. I like, okay, you're showing me just how where you're coming from, and
Yeah,
that's kind of bananas.
it's vindictive.
Well, it's bananas. Are you saying that like this is not going to make me
Yeah,
like, oh,
want
I
you.
want to be with you
Yeah,
now? Like,
exactly,
no, like
exactly.
what is happening? If she would have just been sweet and just be adorable and just be what I Shane might be like, oh yeah, maybe I did make a mistake. You know,
Yeah.
maybe it's that same thing. You want to put your best foot forward, but coming at you like that, oof.
Yeah. So I don't know what's going to happen. Like if,
Crazy
if they
kids.
ever have another conversation about that, the beach. But yeah, I don't,
It was good seeing everybody back together again.
yeah,
I
I
thought
thought
that
it
was
was
kind of
really
fun.
sweet. Like I said, I
Yeah.
like that they brought the other people
And,
on,
and,
and
and can we just real quick? I know, but Natalie, I really did feel bad for Natalie because
yeah.
she's having to sit there
Oh,
and
yeah.
she knows. It's
Yeah.
not like Shayna was hiding it.
Yeah.
She knows. And then they go off together and talk together in their own little private thing.
That's hard.
And I thought to myself, okay,
Yeah.
if I was Natalie,
Yeah.
I would feel, and don't get me wrong, it happened in one of the other episodes too, where Jared, Mallory, and Salvador had to sit there, and
Hmm.
he felt a certain way about it. He
Yeah.
was emotional. He got teared up, and he's like, I don't know what to do, which was appropriate. I would imagine Natalie was going through the same thing, but they didn't
Yeah.
touch on it, other than people visibly saw that she was not okay,
Yeah.
and everybody knows. So,
Yeah,
anyways,
it's like seeing, if you were out somewhere and you were with your girlfriend and her ex was there, and let's say that they did go off and have their own conversation. That happened to me one time before. I was dating this guy. We were newly dating, and his ex showed up at his house, and I don't know, she was on one, and
Mhm.
he had to like pull her aside to kind of calm her down because she did not deal with the breakup very well. But
Mhm.
I was just standing there in the house, like it was so awkward, and I'm like, what do I?
Well, you're a lovely lady, so I'm sure
Yeah.
that poor woman was really hurting because she's like, "Damn it, he ended up with somebody." Oh, like that's which again, that's probably why you shouldn't show up unexpectedly.
Yeah.
For that
It was
reason.
awkward, but I mean, I didn't say anything. I didn't intervene. I was like, look, I mean, like I said, we were newly dating, so I was like, you handle what you got to handle. I
Oof.
don't, I don't really.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah.
No matter which way it goes, by the way. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But we'll see where it progresses. I mean, we're over halfway through, and so things are getting more and more intense, and
Mhm.
you're seeing more of people's personalities come out and stuff like that. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
and one last thing, by the way, and this is not necessarily a bad thing, but I have noticed that men's pants have gotten a lot tighter. Just FYI, and don't get me wrong, because I wear slim fit pants, right? So I know what it's like, but it just seems like,
was it the
especially
beach scene? What do
no,
you?
it's Kyle and his scene when
Oh,
he was walking with Shayna,
oh,
and I was like,
okay.
wow, that's a really. I mean, but he has the body. Don't mind me.
Yeah, he's really fit.
He's extremely fit. So if you have the body, rock it. But I was just like, okay, yeah, it seems like guys, their trousers are just getting a little bit tighter, and
Yeah.
maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. I don't know. We'll
I
see.
like it. I mean,
I mean, I'm sure you do. Like, I mean, listen, if I had that body, I would wear the tightest skin tight pants I could
even
ever
if you
possibly
don't have
wear.
Kyle's body, I think the women still appreciate a tighter
Oh,
jean.
I don't know. My body, I don't think anybody wants to see that. I'll stop at slim fit or form fitting or whatever, but like the really skinny ones, not so
Yeah.
much. But I was like, yeah, everybody's just wearing the trousers are just a little tighter.
Yeah. Ladies like it. But it was good to see you again. Like
Yeah.
I said, we'd love for you guys to email us. It's
Yes.
here's the thing 214@gmail.com. Please tell us what you think.
Yeah.
Rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends.
Yep. Absolutely.
And we'll see you next time.
Until next time. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.